This video accompanies Table 9.4 around the Violence Prevention Initiative research, and at this point in the analysis, we were coding independently, but then we were going to merge that coding together later. So every researcher on the team had their own project, and all of us added new nodes where relevant. So for instance, I added a new node called Catalyst, but only under my special area of the coding structure so that I didn't alter the part of the coding structure that we all agreed on. All the researchers could add new things here, so when we merged the projects, we could all see each other's proposals. In addition, we all wrote in two predefined memos that were created for the team. Here's the first one, and this happens to be the memo that belonged to CG, and it's about node descriptions. So that was one memo, and you can see how this researcher proposed a change to the description. So the text was entered in a different color font, and then when the projects were merged together, the PI could look through these four files to see what changes might be proposed. In addition to this memo on node descriptions, each researcher got a memo for ideas. Now, the ideas memo was a little more complicated. It had heading levels for four main sections, like coding questions and issues for the next team meeting. And embedded in this were also See Also links. That's a great little tool that lets you connect your writing with places in the database, like specific quotes. So for instance, here, you can see a place where I had a question about a particular passage and where to code it, and it was from this transcript. I created a link that went right to it, so the PI or other team members could go right to that link by double-clicking on it and opening to that spot. You'll see from the content that I wrote in that memo in green that it was resolved later, and so that showed both the question and where it ended up getting coded to. Now at this point in the analysis, while we were all working in our own copies of the database, we coded according to these predefined thematic and descriptive codes. Now, at this point in the research, we were all working in our own copies of the database, and we coded 8 to 10 transcripts on our own. But after we coded, one of our teammates would look inside our database to see the files that we coded and where we coded specific passages. Remember, the goal here for us was less to measure a kappa score as a way of measuring coding reliability, and more to make sure we were having discussions and trying to come closer to agreement based on those discussions. So here's an example of what another researcher may have done when he or she read the data I'd coded. They would open the transcript, turn on coding stripes, see where things had been coded, and in the event that I missed something or they disagreed, they would highlight the text and turn it into a different color font. And they would also write this note. This blue highlight indicates I have an annotation, which is like a comment in Microsoft Word. And this is where a note was written. And after that second coder went through my database and identified points of agreement and disagreement, really actually just disagreement, then we got together and talked about it. In the event our conversation resulted in consensus, we would simply change this font color back. But if it didn't result in consensus, then we would identify this as something for the PI who would review it and then make a decision and inform us about it later. So here's an example of a memo where I wrote something about where to code or how to handle something in the coding structure. And then here's the response from the PI. So we could actually have an exchange once they had the aggregated coding back in one database and then redistributed it to the team. Remember that as these get longer and longer, we put in heading levels so that we can auto-code. So after auto-coding, this area, issues for the next team meeting, even though this is just my ideas for the next team meeting, here's everyone's. So this represents the node called Issues for Next Team Meeting, and what CG wanted to raise, what I wanted to raise, ML, and WD didn't have anything at this point. So this made it really easy for the PI to go in answer questions, and when there was substantive information added, this could be exported as a Word document and distributed to the team.